Hi everyone, this is Flavia and welcome to another video. Today I'm sharing a few card design ideas featuring a really fun die set that will allow us to create cards in the shape of a letterboard on an easel stand. I will also be using a few other die sets from different companies to create cards for different occasions. I hope you like this video and let's get started. To create the base for these cards, I will be using this Mama Elephant letterboard die set. This set comes with an alphabet die that I will use to cut out the letters for the letterboard, a square die that will cut out the board and leave engraved marks and stitched patterns on your paper, a die to cut out the frame, and this rectangle die to create a hinge for this card. Because these cards are meant to be kept on display, I will be using heavyweight cardstock so it is sturdy and stands up nicely. Off camera, I die cut all of the pieces to create the base of these cards, so we have one rectangle piece that will work as a hinge for this card. Notice that the die left an impression in the center indicating where we should fold this piece. I also cut out two frames, and one of these frames I actually used the square letterboard and the frame die together to cut the center out so I can later add a different color for the board. To assemble this card, I will place one of the bases inside my scoring board on the corner just to make it easier for me to line up the pieces. Using a strong liquid adhesive, I will adhere the folded hinge die cut to one panel and then add the second panel on top. You could use double-sided adhesive tape if you prefer. I also die cut two more bases in white so I can adhere it to the inside of this card. This way, I will hide the hinge on the inside of this card so it looks nicer, and I will also have a white space to write a message. Because the red and white cardstock that I'm using are heavyweight, I will trim the white panels off just a little bit on the top to make it easier to close this card. To give it a more finished look, I will file the sides of this card using a sanding block. This is an extra step and you don't really have to do this. Now we can move on to the next step, which is to add elements to this letterboard. Aside from the letters, I will add a few other die cut images and create cards for a few different occasions. This one is going to be a Christmas card, and I will actually use some of my die cut leftovers from last year. To make these gingerbread cookies, I used a stamp and die set by Mama Elephant. To color these images, I used Copic markers. The Christmas lights piece that I'm trying to glue back together are from a stamp and die set by Lawn Fawn. I believe it is called Season's Tweetings. I love adding little surprises to the inside of the cards that I make, so for this one, I will add here a gingerbread cookie wearing a Christmas hat on the inside of this card. To add some sparkle to the hats, I will use my Nuvo Shimmer pen. To make the Christmas lights glossy, after coloring with Copic markers, I added Ranger Glossy accents. The sentiment for this letterboard card will be Happy Holidays. I'm placing these letters on a piece of tape because I want to heat emboss them with gold embossing powder, and this will allow me to do all of these letters at once. So after I have all of the letters adhered to this large purple tape, I will grab my watermark pad and press it against these letters. This will allow the embossing powder to stick to these letters so we can heat set it later. The embossing powder that I'm using is the Ranger Gold Super Fine Detail Embossing Powder. I will repeat this process one more time to get a smoother look. So here is the thing, because we also got embossing powder on the tape, once we start pulling the letters out one by one, you will notice that there is excess of embossed powder around the letters. I will use a craft knife to scrape it off. It won't look perfect now, especially because as we are scraping off the excess around the letters, we will end up scratching them on the top. However, once I have adhered these letters to the front panel, I will heat set it again and all of the letters will look perfectly smooth and shiny. So if you try this at home, don't be discouraged and know that at the end it will look perfect. Let me give you a closer look on the finished card after I heat set these letters one more time so you can see that they look perfectly fine with no scratches. Before we move on to the next card, let me show you the stamp and die set that I used by Mama Elephant to cut out the gingerbread cookies. I love the images and the sentiments in the set. And this is another die set that I will use to create a second Christmas card. This is the Concord N9 Fresh Cut Florals Edition 4. In this set, we get die plates to cut out poinsettia petals, centers, little flowers, sprigs, and berries. Since I never throw away my leftover die cuts, these flowers are also leftovers from last year. Once I have the poinsettia and the sprigs positioned exactly where I want them to go, I will use a piece of pressing seal to pick them all at once so I can add liquid adhesive in the back. None of the stamps and die sets that I am using today are new releases, so I really hope that this video inspires you to use whatever you already have to create new cards. Our stamps and die sets do not have an expiration date, and since this hobby of ours can be very expensive, I think it is very important that we find creative ways to make the most of our supplies. And mix and matching stamps and die sets from different companies is a great way to do that. If you like the shape of these cards, keep in mind that even though having the letterboard die set makes it easier, you can easily create this card base without using the die set. You will have to create the hinge piece by cutting a rectangle that is about 1 inch long and as wide as your card base is. Or better yet, you just use a top folding A2 size card base. This way you do not need the hinge piece and you just cut out the legs at the bottom. The wonderful thing about having this die set is that the plates not only cut out the pieces, but it also leaves impressions on your cardstock that looks just beautiful, but you can definitely create these cards on your own. Since I already had my die cut pieces ready, it took me no time at all to create this second card. To the inside of this card, I also added white panels, so I have a place to write a message and some flowers, and later I will show you the match envelopes for these cards. Let's now create a baby shower card. Since the process is the same, I already have the letterboard base assembled and we will just add the other die cut elements. Aside from the letters, I will also add some birds that I cut out using this set by Spellbinders. When I first received this die set, I cut out and assembled lots of birds in many different colors so I could have them handy. So the most challenging part of making this card was actually deciding on which color of birdies I should use, which I think took me about 20 minutes. I can get really stuck in the color choice process sometimes, actually all of the time. This is definitely the most time-consuming step for me. I will also add some flowers and sprigs to the corners of this panel. Let me give you a closer look now so you can better understand what I'm about to do. Do you see how the eyes of this little bird are blue? That was a quick fix that I did by just adhering a piece of blue cardstock to the back of its head. I ended up not liking it at all, and guess what? I noticed that when I cut these birds many weeks ago, I had saved all of the tiny die-cut pieces for the eyes. So now I'm trying to find the white ones because I think it will look better. These pieces are so small that I almost needed a magnifying glass. I know this might seem silly because it is such a small detail, but it made all of the difference for me. And I'm glad that I was smart enough to save those tiny pieces. To make these white letters shiny, I went over each one of them with my Nuvo Shimmer pen. So now for the last one, we are going to create a Halloween card using orange and purple cardstock for the base. I'm again using the corner of my scoring board to make it easier to adhere all of the die cut pieces. Just like the other cards, I will sandwich the hinge piece between these two letterboard panels. All of the colorful cardstock that I am using today are from Recollections. I really like this brand of cardstock for die cutting because they offer a beautiful variety of colors. The elements that I will add to create a Halloween scene are black branches that I die cut using a die plate from this set by Spellbinders, a black cat using a die from another Spellbinder set, and a few bats that I die cut out of black glitter cardstock using this die plate by Fun Stamper's Journey. For the sentiment, I used bright green cardstock, and even though I like to use press and seal to pick up all of the die cut pieces at once to add liquid adhesive in the back, I realized that with this letterboard it is better if I adhere the letters one by one, so it is easier to place them straight on top of the engraved line. When I used the press and seal to pick up all of the pieces at once to add liquid adhesive in the back, it was a little bit difficult to place the letters back on top of the engraved lines that I wanted to follow, because I couldn't see the engraved lines on my cardstock through the piece of press and seal. As I was double checking the finished card, I noticed that there was a stain on the back, so I decided to add some branches to cover it, which I think made this card look even better. So when you make a mistake like this, think about all of the different ways that there are for you to correct or hide them. Don't give up at first, because you can always add embellishments or die cuts to hide your mistakes, and at the end you might end up with a card that looks even better than you had already planned. To make the cat stand out a little bit, I will apply Ranger Glossy Accents to make it shiny. Let me show you now how I like to apply Ranger Glossy Accents to my die cuts all the way to the edge. I like to add a generous amount of glossy accents to the center of my die cut, and then I use a tool like this one to move the glossy accents around and push it all the way to the edge. I believe this tool came in a pack of 4, maybe 5 pens, and I got it from Amazon. It is called the Dotting Pens, and it is actually meant for nail art, but I always keep one in my craft room. So let's go over all of the cards that we created today along with the matching envelopes, and I also have a few extra cards that I made off camera to show you. I ended up making 3 baby shower cards. One was in English and the other 2 in Portuguese with the baby names on the letterboard. To make the envelopes match, I added the same die cut elements that I used in the cards, making sure to keep it in the same color family. Then we have 2 Christmas cards that I showed you earlier. To decorate the envelopes, I used a stamp set by Waffle Flower. I had embossed it with that same gold embossing powder that I used earlier in this video, and I love how shiny it is in person. Here is the Halloween card with its matching envelope. I'm really into adding die-cut elements to the envelope instead of stamping on it. It is a great option for decorating the envelopes to make it match the cards instead of stamping. When stamping on envelopes, there is always the risk of not getting great results depending on the type of paper that your envelope is made of. Not all papers are meant for stamping, so I think it is safer if I just hit emboss or add die-cut elements to my envelopes. So there you have it, lots of card examples using lots of die sets from many different companies. I hope you enjoyed this video and felt inspired. For pictures of these cards and more information, including a supply list of all products used, make sure to visit my blog. I will have the link in the description below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. And if you do not want to miss any new card making tutorials, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching, take care, and I hope you have a wonderful day.